Mike, great. Let me just clarify. So we're talking about an ID that you probably have on your phone, right? It's like a wallet, like we're used to having with other functions like the Apple Wallet or Google, et cetera. And you own it. You decide what to share and when, right? So first of all, you met Mike already. I'm David SJOLANDER. I'm also with HT&G. Mike and I have worked together now for not quite the 13 years, but close to it. And I want to introduce our other panelists, Andrew Metcalfe and Barry Thomas. Andrew, why don't you just introduce yourself, and I'll let Barry do the same.
Yep, no worries. I'm the CTO of Guestline, so we're a hospitality platform, PMS, and other products. And I also own a very small hotel in Essex, only 5 bedrooms, a wedding venue, so some experience on the other side as well.
So you're on both the dark side and the bright side at the same time.
I don't know which is which.
Barry?
Hi, I'm Barry. I head up our property technology organisation for Rosewood Hotel Group, and I'm also a global director on the board of HFTP.
So guys, we've spent decades trying to improve our knowledge of the guest, right? Through our, back in my day, 40 years ago, installing PMS systems, we were loading, off of manual cards, putting into the guest history. We've spent, I don't know how many, hundreds of millions of dollars. How do you feel about this idea of maybe that doesn't matter anymore because the guest has their data and they're going to share it with you when they want to? Is this a good thing, a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. And I think what we've seen since 2018 with GDPR is that our guests are certainly more aware of their privacy rights. They're certainly more aware of the value that their data has. And we as a business want to acquire that data. And if we're willing as a business or an organization to provide extra service, a more memorable experience in exchange for that data, I think our guests are willing to give it up. But also, to Mike's point earlier about GDPR and CCPA, this is a minefield that we're navigating every day. And if the guests take control of that and it becomes their responsibility and takes that a little bit away from us as an operator, that's something I would definitely welcome.
But everybody think about what he just said, right? If that is now in the customer's hands, what's that mean for your current systems, right? You got to kind of re-architect the front end, how you get the data, how you interpret the data, what is even, the data lakes and the data oceans. I don't know what they're going to look pretty dry. So it's just a fascinating way to think about this. And by the way, this is not, once again, my idea. I know many of you know Nick Price. So Nick is leading up that hospitality and travel SIG, so he's very passionate about this. He apologizes that he couldn't be here today, but we certainly at HT&G believe in what they're doing and what they're working on, and we have already had a very similar presentation, much more in depth. That's how Mark Reed was able to raise his hand, because he actually went through the presentation, because this is a topic all senior technology people should know about.
Andrew, what are your thoughts?
So, we're going to be the people who our customers ask to spend our money developing it, and then we hope they buy it. And I guess there is definitely a problem to be solved, which is getting the information from the guest to the hotel. And it's not going to be a piece of paper. In theory, in the long run, it's probably well accepted and everyone knows that the airline model of online check-ins and things like that are well underway. So getting that information succinctly to you is key. I think the challenge is going to be whether there will be adoption of this by people, the systems and everything else, and I suspect that the topic will evolve massively, and I think that's okay, but there's definitely a need for it. I think the challenge is, and particularly in Europe, and we talked about this a little bit amongst ourselves, is there are still people in Europe who remember when you need to see your papers, and some people are saying COVID passports are like that, but there is that real fear, and I think it's all well and good saying GDPR is a challenge, it's all this sort of stuff, but ultimately it's going to be on your system. You can't keep having an internet connection all the time, so people are going to have to take their systems in and out, and at which point does it matter? I think the other thing is if you accept that the data does need to go to systems, one of the experiences we had is when we were brushing out all of our online check-ins and all that sort of stuff last year as we were developing them, we thought, we're going to need a central profile, how are we going to navigate the morass of independent hotels having smaller databases and all this sort of stuff. And then as we started to roll it out, we just realized that on the web page, everyone had all their values already preloaded. So they just clicked, it loaded it, then they clicked save, and then they were done. So we didn't need any of that functionality in the end. And I wonder if these things are going to come. I do think, though, that if Apple or Google or those sorts of Microsoft, or a key slide there, adopt it, then there's a real big chance this will go. So I think they will probably dictate this space quite a lot. But it's definitely a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah. Barry, I understand you've, Rosewood has spent a lot of time and money recently kind of re-architecting this whole guest knowledge area. Could you give us a little overview?
Yeah, so we actually spent the pandemic, or from the start of the pandemic, going through a digital transformation, and we realized that we needed to invest and we needed to continue to develop and do this during this time, because we need to be ready for when business does come back. So what we've done is create an MDM, so a master data management platform, that will hold a central golden profile for us as an organization. We operate 45 hotels across the globe at the moment under 3 different brands, and each hotel had their own profiles for the same guests, especially guests that stay in multiple hotels of ours. So we wanted to bring this above property. And there's obviously vendors that do it very well, but we wanted to own that, because we feel that to really drive innovation, we need to have full control over that platform. So we built it. We worked with partners to do so, and we have now deployed this for our hotels. We've integrated all of our hotels globally into this, and we are now passing that golden profile to all of the PMSs in our hotels. But that's the first stage of this. The next part of this is, what other systems do we want that profile to be? The point of sale system, our table management systems, our spa systems. So sort of when I was asked to join this panel and I realized it was about self-sovereign identity and digital ID, I was worried. I was thinking, I know nothing about this. But then as we got into the conversation, it's like, well, we've kind of gone through a similar experience, and we're building for the future, that if self-sovereign identity, when it does come, that we're not going to be there completely set up, but at least we've got one place that we need to integrate to, that our guests will then load this or issue this credential or this ID to us, and then we can push it down to our hotels very easily. And then again, when they decide to take it away, we're not having to go and search 45 hotels for this data. It lives in one place, and we've seen tremendous benefits by doing that.
I'm not going to ask you how much you spent to...
It was a hefty investment. We're lucky that we've got full backing of the board, and our CEO has championed this, and out of all divisions within our business, we continue to grow our headcount in IT, because they really do see it as the differentiator and what's going to allow us to have that competitive advantage as business does start to come back.
So, Andrew, you have a 5-room hotel, I understand. I'm guessing you don't have the budget that Rosewood has. But you do own a technology company. So, can the folks that don't have those resources solve this problem?
I think so. I think it is very, very different for independents. And we have a lot of challenge because they might not have the same size of database and so forth. And this, in theory, helps you get that first set of data. Absolutely great. But I do think there's a lot of things that, centrally having a good system, having good integrations and things can really help. I think as well, actually, from my experience of owning a hotel, is you might kind of go, well, we're never going to get the huge marketing database. We're small, everything else. It isn't just necessarily that marketing experience that the bigger brands need. For us, it's actually that operational side of it. And I think, again, back to the airlines, I use this quite a lot, but 10, 15 years ago, I remember going with EasyJet and being really annoyed that they'd asked me to print my boarding pass out, because I was worried my phone was going to die and if I lost a piece of paper and all this sort of stuff. And I did a flight 18 months ago. It was a new route, and they didn't have all this done, and I had to go and queue up for 20 minutes to get my boarding pass. And I'm going, this is ridiculous. I've got to queue up 20 minutes to get my boarding pass. That is going to happen with hotels, and it will happen at all parts of that journey. Now, the one that we're finding really good at my own little place, because we have a lot of business regulars who want to leave early, I don't want to have to recruit someone at 6:30 in the morning to sit there waiting for the one person to come down. But because I've got all of their details right up front, emails, payment details, et cetera, they can pay online and go. And those people are coming back because our competitors haven't. And of course, it's one of our products, so I've been able to alpha that. But that is where it happens. And if you haven't got the data up front, you can't deliver that experience. And for us, through the pandemic, we had a lot of our staff furloughed, but they were able to keep staying and pretty much self-serve their whole stay, which is not exactly our model, to be honest, because we're a countryside hotel, but they were able to do it, and they value that. It's not something they saw as being taken away from them. So I think it's key. So.
It reminds me of an experience I had actually here in London when I was traveling with my boss, the CIO of a major international hotel chain, which will remain unnamed. And we were checking at the front desk, and the clerk pushed over the registration form and said, "Could you please fill this out?" And my boss, the CIO, said, "I've stayed here before, you fill it out." But unfortunately, we're still seeing this today.
That
in a
wasn't
lot of
me,
cases.
by the way.
Yeah. different international hotel chain, yeah, but than Mike's at Hyatt. But it still, it still happens. And I think about my own experiences checking in. You occasionally get acknowledged as being part of the loyalty program. Thank you for being a whatever member. But that's about it, right? It's unfortunate that we're still at that place in a lot of hotels after, again, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment over the years, and it's probably not that hard to solve if you worked at it a little bit more.
Well, I'll say a lot of airlines that used to be around aren't anymore, and I don't think it's going to be that stark with hotels. And it's big brands, airlines that have survived. I think independent hotels can make this work. I don't think it's going to be the end of independent hotels or anything like that. But it will be detrimental to your business if you don't start to do this stuff. I believe. I don't think it's overnight, and we've all got lots of things to invest in right now. So I appreciate it's not for everyone to do today, but I think everyone needs to start thinking about this. And the one thing I'll say as well is that it starts with the identity, but actually it starts to be every bit of your system end to end needs to have the joined up. So we talk about master data management, spa, golf, everything else as well.
Yeah. Well, here's another story with my current boss. We were on a flight the other day, sitting together, and the captain came out and greeted Mr. Blake and thanked him for flying with us, and went on a little bit. And the entire first class section was watching this. And then after the captain left, they all started talking about it. How often does that ever happen, where the captain comes out and greets you? And everybody thought he was famous. So could ask for autographs. So yeah, but you're right. There are other, but it's easier, I think, in a lot of industries than the hotel industry because of our fragmentation, right? The airline, they own the whole thing, right? We have the issue of different management companies, different chains, different owners. It always gets in the way.
They rarely own the airport, though. So
That's
I
true.
mean, they do have to do a level of integration, and they have had to solve it. And they don't own the car parks, and they don't own this. So, and they've not started there. They've started further back in the bit they can control, and then go for that. And I think the airline model is interesting because they haven't gone, right, we're just going to do it overnight. They have started slow steps. And a lot of people I speak to anyway are kind of like, we're just going to do it all at once. And you're started with master data management, which is quite a technical term, but it's basically about having a central record and then being able to link all your systems together from that central record. They are the things, sort of boring topics that you actually have to solve, and they're not easy. But if you get that bit going now, then the rest of it will follow, and that's how you'll achieve your aims in the long run, I think. So yeah.
So Barry, when you started on this project, were you under a lot of pressure to show the ROI and measure, and are you working on that?
Yeah, no, not me personally, but yes, as a business and as a division, IT, we were, and the ROI was we could calculate it and we could show it, and those calculations were based pre-COVID, and then the pandemic hit and things changed. Luckily that because we've got quite a diverse business with resorts in all over the world and city hotels, that the business has still continued, and we've got a lot of drive-to hotels. The drive-to market has been very strong for us. The resorts in Mexico have been very strong, and we've got some hotels that are having their best years ever out of their 20-year history. So that's allowed the flow through from the hotels to support this new model that we've built, and that's propped up the hotels that are maybe not doing so well. But there is an ROI, and it was required before we got the budget approval, because people are not going to invest that level of money just because it's cool tech. There needs to be a business case behind it, and luckily we had a leader that showed that business case.
Yeah, because underlying all of that is experiences, right? Because we're moving, you'll heard it, just because COVID hit, people are still going to have an experiential economy, right? So people want experiences. And in an effort to help that and facilitate that and differentiate yourself, you need the data.
The data is our number one asset. It's our most valuable asset. We have beautiful buildings and beautiful restaurants, but the guest data is our number one asset.
And how you use that data is actually going to be the point of differentiation. Because when you start looking at something like a self-sovereign type of thing or what have you, it's not so much the data elements now, it's how you're going to act on them and how you're going to drive experiences around the guest.
I agree, and this goes back to the point about people willing to give up their data for that more personalised experience. Uber can show up and recognise you by name on the side of a curb, and you've never spoke to these people before. They don't know who you are. Yet our hotels, we still struggle with this. We know what time people are arriving. We know who's coming in, what rooms they're going to. But not all hotels can get that yet. Name recognition, personalised experiences. But tech companies can. And they do it very, very well. And we need to stop thinking not stop thinking like hotels, but we need to start thinking more like tech companies and how do they deliver these personalized experiences to their guests. And we need to catch up because we are slightly behind on that.
Yeah, I do think one thing about this, the self-sovereign identity, is the idea of not just being the address. I mean, you focus on the address as a good example of being able to push that out, which is a good example and is a benefit. But you talk about the other preferences, attributes, and stuff like that. Now, again, that's the bit that I think will be interesting to see how it gets adopted. But if it does, and you're not aware of that, and the hotel down the road is, and you walk in and your temperature of your room's at the right temperature or whatever it might be that is useful, or they say, would you like a red wine, because, how did you know? Those sorts of things, while small, happen. What I will say, though, is it is very difficult. I used to work in MarTech, and we had billions and billions of data points every day, and everyone was like, you must know absolutely everything. Do you know what the most important thing we could work out about an individual was whether they were male or female? Because actually, people do behave differently at certain times of the day based on whether they're male or female, and actually being able to market for Mercedes or whoever, a model of car. I'm not saying that they don't, men don't buy the other cars and vice versa, but the likelihood was a lot better. That really, really helped and drove things forwards. So I think that level of it we can really help. And so again, if you can get down to that, and then you can learn from that and start to specialize, you'll be there. You'll get a lot more ROI out of that too.
Yeah, this morning there was a discussion about personalized pricing, which I think we're now starting to call attribute-based pricing, where we're bundling packages together based upon what the guest really wants. Some people look at it, again, the airline example of decoupling the product and charging for every little thing. There's different ways to look at it. But one of the use cases for this central self-service identity is not self-service, decentralized identity, let's call it, is if I share the information about me, what my hobbies are or my interests, or my preferences in the guest room, for example, that will allow the hotel to put together offers that are specific to me. People might not want to share their information, but they can. It's their choice. They can tell you what they want. This should help the hotel package exactly what that guest wants and, make that hotel more competitive, or at least make the guest much happier. So, I wish I hadn't listened to this Daniel Fryer presentation, because I immediately went to, what if I'm a moderator and I can't think of a question to ask? I'm going to look something. But we're actually running out of time. I'm getting the signals,
I listened to him too, and I said to myself, well, if I don't know something about this topic, everyone just talk to Nick Price. He does. So everyone, thank you very much for having us. I really appreciate it. And don't go home tomorrow and say, oh my God, this digital ID is right upon us. It's going to take a little while to sort through. I just wanted to put it on your radar screen so you're aware.
All right, thanks for all the panelists. We appreciate you doing this.
Thank you very much. Good.